For coming out on what is a very important, time-sensitive issue on legislation that must pass the House and the Senate this year in 2016 before the end of the year. Providing support for those who need it the most has been a principle Americans have stood by for generations. There is an urgent need for Congress to act now to ensure that Americans living with disabilities can access the complex rehabilitative equipment they require to meet their medical needs and to function at the highest level possible, allowing them to live independently and happily. When the Medicare Improvements for Patients and Providers Act of 2008 was passed and signed into law, it stated that complex rehabilitation technology devices would be excluded from the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services competitive bidding program. Excluded devices include power wheelchairs and the related accessories, which are the fundamental parts of the products that make them useful and beneficial to people with progressed disabilities, such as reclined tilt systems, specialty controls, and seat back cushions. In November 2014, CMS issued a ruling contrary to MEPA, which stated that starting in January 2016, accessories that are used on complex rehabilitative wheelchairs would no longer be part of the fixed fee schedule, but would be subject to competitive bidding pricing. This ruling would be devastating for the disabled community, decreasing individuals' access to individually configured wheelchairs and accessories. In December 2015, Congress passed the Patient Access and Medicare Protection Act, Senate Bill 2425, which provided a one-year delay in the application of Medicare competitive bid pricing for complex rehab power wheelchairs and accessories to keep fees from rising. Now Congress must act again in 2016 with a more permanent fix to be granted. On July 27, 2015, I introduced legislation in the House, H.R. 3229, which would address this very time-sensitive issue by ensuring that those with disabilities can access the complex rehabilitative equipment they require to meet their medical needs and to function at the highest level possible. My bill, which has a Senate companion, Senate Bill 2196, has rapidly growing bipartisan support with over 135 co-sponsors in the House and 24 bipartisan Senate co-sponsors. This bill is also fully supported by the ALS Foundation Association, Muscular Dystrophy Association, National Multiple Sclerosis Society, Paralyzed Veterans of America, Vets First, and United Spinal Association. In an effort to advance this legislation, I testified in support of my bill at a House Ways and Means Subcommittee on Health hearing on June 8, 2016. In addition to this testimony, new information has been reported since the introduction of this bill, which only further supports our cause. An additional requirement of Senate 2425's passage was a report conducted by the Government Accountability Office, which detailed why costs would increase for consumers should they switch to the competitive bidding model. As a result of this report, new cost estimates are now being conducted to detail the significant sums of money that will be saved due to the implementation of this legislation. The GAO report highlighted that too much of the competitive bid rate data is outdated, limited, and insufficient for determining payment rises nationally. By applying competitive bid pricing for accessories used with standard wheelchairs to those used with complex rehabilitative technology wheelchairs, there will be a misguided and massive reduction, with prices 10 to 34% at least. This bill, which is currently in the House Ways and Means and House Energy and Commerce committees, must be released from one of these committees and passed in order to become law this year. This helps all Americans dealing with the challenges from disabilities such as ALS, cerebral palsy, multiple sclerosis, spinal cord injury, and many other debilitating illnesses. This bill is just one effort to help Americans with disabilities attain the self-sufficiency and independence we all cherish. Some people may be asking what the difference is between the standard wheelchair and CRT. Standard wheelchair is what you might think, that wheelchair that's basic, that takes you from point A to point B. That CRT wheelchair is a lifeline. It is just about everything for that child or that adult relying on it. This isn't about helping those in need of standard wheelchairs, which obviously, of course, is an important cause to fight. But this is much more important than that. This is helping the people who rely on these wheelchairs and these accessories for their way of life. I will continue working in Congress to provide support and care to help the many vulnerable adults and children living with disabilities. We're pleased to be here today at United Cerebral Palsy of Long Island's COMAX site. UCP of Long Island is present all over Long Island, doing a lot of very important work. You could call it God's work, to help those who are some of the most vulnerable in our country. We're joined today by the President and CEO, our next speaker, Stephen Friedman.
Good morning and welcome to United Cerebral Palsy of Long Island and our Children's Center. I want to start by not only thanking Congressman Zeldin for his leadership on this critical issue, but also his outstanding commitment to all individuals with disabilities. It is important to me to first point out that as an agency providing programs and services to over 3,500 individuals, we are not alone in support of this legislation. Also in strong support are the UCP National Association, the Cerebral Palsy Association of New York, which combined have over 100 affiliated agencies that are providing services to over 270,000 children and adults with disabilities. I can stand in front of you today and talk at length about how the Center for Medicare and Medicaid's program of competitive bidding has made Joseph, a 42-year-old man with a traumatic brain injury, wait over a year to get a new wheelchair. Or Richard, who after a year and 2 vendors finally got his wheelchair. I can tell you similar stories of Marilyn, Roy, Bruce, John, and numerous others, but the wheelchair and accessories are only part of the story. For everyone here today that will walk out of this building and drive back home or to work will have opportunities that these individuals without their wheelchairs will never have. You can work, travel, shop, go to sporting events and concerts, or just enjoy the local park. An individual without his or her wheelchair cannot. Recently, I told the story of Tammy, who had a dream of independence. Since becoming involved with UCP, she gained the skills to become more involved, productive, interactive within the community. This resulted in her ability to live on her own, obtain a job, find and marry the love of her life, purchase a new home, and have a beautiful baby girl. None of this would have been a reality if it was not for having a wheelchair. So many individuals in our program who have joined us today can tell you similar stories. They can also tell you stories of how they waited months for repair on their manual and power wheelchairs, or how they fear having a poor-fitting chair or a cushion seat can cause pressure sores or other injuries that can be life-threatening. It is time that the Center for Medicare and Medicaid comes out of their offices and meets Tammy and individuals like her. It is time that they learn that a wheelchair is not just metal and rubber, but an ability to obtain independence, freedom, and achieve the American dream. It is time that Congress acts and passes H.R. 3229 so that those individuals who use, benefit, and depend on their wheelchairs can, as we say here at UCP, live a life without limits. I want to again thank the Congressman for all his work on this vital legislation, and we look forward to any other support that we can give to make it a reality. Thank you.
And as was highlighted by Mr. Friedman's words, where it is a challenge now to get access, imagine what happens when you reduce that reimbursement rate by at least 10 to 34%. You will end up with what is already limited access to become more limited. Because less companies and individuals will be providing this technology and this service, and what is already, unfortunately, too much of a challenge with access becomes a little too much more of a challenge, and that's why we're here today. One of the UCP Long Island participants, someone who has participated with you at UCP of Long Island for approximately 50 years and would benefit directly from our bill, is Rolf Walton. Rolf is a champion of this cause and many causes on behalf of the quality of life of so many other men and women and children all across Long Island and this country. So it's great to have Rolf here to say a few words today.
It would be very important to all of us, because we really depend on these wheelchairs, and what Medicaid brought, most of the controls won't be covered. The tilt back on these wheelchairs will not be covered. And I believe these are our legs. These are our legs of getting around. This is how we walk. And without these wheelchairs, we can't walk. We can't drive. We can't get out in the community. And another thing, they will get cheaper quality of work, cheaper quality of services. We don't know who will fix these chairs. It may be somebody that uses cheaper equipment, cheaper parts. We need the vendors to fix wheelchairs that know how to fix the wheelchairs. We basically need these wheelchairs fixed right the first time, not 20 times later. And I really think this bill is urgently needed in the Senate and in the Congress to get passed. I hope all of you support us in this cause. I definitely would like to thank the Congressman for coming down here and explaining this bill, because it's a very important bill to get passed. Thank you very much.
I don't know why the rest of us are speaking. We should have just gave Rolf the mic. Good job. Well, thank you. And I was here just a couple of weeks ago, touring some of the classrooms, and it's amazing the innovation on these wheelchairs and accessories, where individuals are able to communicate with computer screens, and literally where their eyes are looking on the screen, they're able to communicate words and answer questions and ask questions just where their eyes are looking at the equipment on these wheelchairs. It's amazing how much technology has come along. Thank you again, Rolf. And now I'm very pleased to introduce our county legislator here in the area, someone with a lifetime spent of public service, in many ways most importantly, with all due respect for his current position, most importantly, with his service in law enforcement here in Suffolk County. We stand with our first responders, and I appreciate you being here, Rob, to stand with all of our Long Islanders in need of his help.
I just want to say briefly, I concur with the Congressman. I mean, a lot of times government gets in its way of itself. This bill will take that out. We should be able to act quickly, get the chairs we need specifically for that person, cut out all the crap. And I think that's what this bill will do. So I thank the Congressman.
Our next speaker is Linda Bollinger, who is a physical therapist who has an important insight and perspective that she is able to share with regards to this effort. Linda.
Hi, everyone. I just want to let everyone know that I've been providing seating and mobility assessments for a lot of our individuals, for the short people, for over 17 years at UCP in Suffolk. And we have always had to change with the times. When competitive bid went into effect, we changed with that. However, we've experienced with competitive bid process poor service, poor equipment. As Rob said, sometimes the equipment that we request doesn't show up. It shows up inappropriate. It takes us multiple attempts with many vendors to get the equipment that we need, and that's for the standard equipment. And so now when we talk about our guys who might have even more complex needs, for me to imagine that process in a complex rehab in competitive bid, I just can't even imagine it. We have very, very specialized needs that require specialized adjustments by qualified vendors, qualified clinicians, and this process of competitive bid completely takes that out. I've had experiences where wheelchairs were dropped off on people's porches. I made the order and the recommendation, and the vendor completely ignored what I recommended and dropped off what they had in the shop. The rulings on competitive bid is that it doesn't matter what brand you select as long as it's in the code of the equipment. So for us, it's very, very important that we can keep complex rehab technology out of the competitive bid process. As we all said, there are lots of ways that we can improve on the Medicare system, but this bill is really great in that it focuses on this one need of our guys, and so I wholly support it. As many of you know, I'm very passionate about this, and I really hope that you continue to pull the people that you need to get the support that we need. And thank you.
In closing, I'd like to thank everyone with UCP who is here, all the employees, all of the residents, family members, everything that you do to make Long Island great that brings us here today. I thank all of you for being here. I thank those who are here to cover this legislative effort because we are able to take those news clippings, those audio clippings, and send it all around the country to recruit additional co-sponsors to raise awareness. And in the back, Matt Scott, who is based in our DC office, but from the Smithtown community. Matt has been running point on this effort and has personally whipped up probably the most amount of co-sponsors single-handedly. I thank all of you for being here.